Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, and a warm welcome to everyone joining our webinar. For those of you who have attended my last week's webinar, you already know that the magic no-code merging of worlds is indeed possible. And by saying merging of worlds, I mean the flexibility of the electronic reporting data source modeling on one hand, and the Docentric user-friendly, time-saving template designer on the other hand. So let us continue with this approach today. I would like to show you how to make your public-facing documents even more appealing and of course legally compliant. To achieve this, we will add product images and product specifications to our documents. My name is Klemen Novak and I would like to show you today how to do some things with Docentric in Dynamics 365FO that you simply cannot do with the standard electronic reporting and business documents framework. Along the way, I will try to show you a few new tips and tricks you might yet not know. My goal is to show you how functional consultants, power users, and end users can use the electronic reporting configuration instead of code. I like to call this the no-code magic show, as some of you perhaps already know. By the way, I'm really curious if any of you who were with me last week have already tried this magic on your own. And for those of you who didn't have the time to join me, then you can watch this part again on YouTube. We have already published it, and yes, while you're there, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that after watching both of my webinars, you should all have the basic skills and insights to get started on your own. So what's on today's magic agenda? I must admit it's a really short one, but still full of interesting content. We will first look at what we have already accomplished at the previous webinar and then what we will do today. Next up, in the demo part, I will prepare everything and show you how to add product images and product specifications to our invoice. In short, we will start by modifying the electronic reporting configurations, then switch to the Docentric Designer. Of course, you are all welcome with any comments or questions already during the presentation, and I will try to answer them at the end. I will now challenge myself to take you through this content in about 45 minutes, plus what it takes to answer your questions. Let us now take a look at what we were doing last week. I have showed you how simple it is to create sales invoice merged with terms and conditions. We have modified the original configuration in electronic reporting framework, which in the end took us quite some time. But hey, you're not going to do this every day, are you? Then we shifted our workspace to the Docentric Designer and changed the Microsoft Word invoice template. We used the Docentric's unique subdocument feature to merge the terms and conditions into one single invoice document. Let me just mention here that we have stored several different terms and conditions as separate, nicely designed Microsoft Word documents. These documents were already translated to a number of languages and stored as attachments on the current legal entity in Dynamics 365FO. Now, to continue where we left off, we will first add product images to our document. And just like before, today we will again continue to work on the sales invoice. I think you would all agree with me that this should bring a nice touch and a higher degree of professionalism to your public-facing documents. We will be using roughly the same capabilities that you already remembered from the last webinar. In today's demo, I will first show you how to bring images to the data source and then send them to the report generator. Of course, we will have to modify the invoice template before these images will finally show up in the generated document, but this should be done fairly easily and quickly. We will then repeat the process and put the icing on the cake by adding the product specifications. And here we will follow a similar scenario just like we did with terms and conditions. But this time the goal is to have product specifications for each of our invoiced products and all of them nicely embedded and merged into a single sales invoice. This is, by the way, currently not possible without Docentric in Dynamics 365 FO. By the end of the demo, and with all the additions to our template designs, our invoice should have a look of a more complete and appealing document and should also be compliant to fast-changing regulatory requirements. And now the moment I hope you have all been waiting for. But I have to be honest here, while I still haven't figured out to use my magic to create dinosaurs like Jurassic Park, I still hope that you get the oh effect when you see how the end result looks like. Now I will switch to my virtual machine and let's start the no-code magic show. Okay, so first of all, let us take a look what we have done in the previous webinar. Let us generate the document. Last week we used electronic reporting design for the sales invoice, and we added terms and conditions to our document. So we can see here that these terms and conditions are merged. Okay, so now we need to modify the electronic reporting configuration to also add product images and product specifications. So the first thing we need to do is to go back to the electronic reporting framework and start modifying the report configurations. And the first thing we will do is we will modify the invoice model, the Docentric invoice model, which we have created last week. And we just go into the designer and we now have to find the invoice line in the model. So we have found the invoice line and we need to add a new child node which will be called item image. So this node we will be using in Docentric Design, and we will use the item type string. And now the second thing we will add, we will again select the invoice line item, and we will add item image as a container node, which will be of type container. Okay, and we will also add a third node which will help me to show and hide item images if they are present or not in the Excel format configuration of a business documents. So I again need to select the invoice line and again add a new node which will be of type bullet. And now the next thing we need to do is to give them a nice name. So first of all we will add a label to the item image, and then we will also give it a name, give a name to the image item as a container. Okay, and we will do the same for the item image. And now we're done. We just need to save the modifications to the invoice model. The second thing we want to do is to add also to the model the item specification, so that we can bring to the model product specification. So again we will select the invoice line and we will say that this is the item specification node. This will be of type record. Okay, and we will give it again a name, a label, and save. So now we have prepared the model. We have added nodes for product images, and we also added the node for item specifications. So because the item specification needs to have some additional data, we will also switch the reference and select the additional document reference. So this additional document reference, which we also used in the last week's webinar. If you take a look how it looks like, this is basically a type that was already defined in the model from Microsoft, and it contains the content, the description of the embedded document, the document identifier, and some other additional information. And this would be enough for our demo. So we save this, changes to the model, we go back, and now the next thing we need to do is to create the model mapping. So again, we need to extend the model mapping of the sales invoice. And the first thing we will do, we will add the necessary information to the data sources to get the product images, and then later on we will bind the data sources to the data model. So let's start by doing this, and the first thing we need to do is to add a table definition to the root, and this table definition we will use the event table. Okay, and the second thing we need to do is to add a class definition to our data source, and this class definition is the image reference. So image reference will be used for fetching the thumbnail of the released product image. Then we need to start building our calculated fields, and the first thing we will do, we will add to the invoice lines a new calculated field. We need to select the calculated field, and this new calculated field will be fetching from the event table the correct product. So we need to add the formula to this calculated field, and this formula basically just calls on the event table find method in which we pass the current item ID of the invoice line. So we just save it, we go back, and again we save it. The next thing we need to do is to add another calculated field to the invoice line, and this calculated field will be named image reference. And again we need to add a new formula, and we need to pass into this formula the following expressions. So we will be using our image reference class to construct the information about the released product image thumbnail. So that's why we need to read the thumbnail and create the image reference from the packed data. Again, we save and everything is okay, and we close this. And now we're almost there. So basically now we have the information from the calculated field, the image from the calculated field, and the next thing we need to do, we need to bring this thumbnail to the data model. But the first thing we will do is to add to the invoice lines item image. We'll bind the following expression. This expression will be used then in Docentric Designer. So basically we just check if the item image reference we just created contains the thumbnail in base64 format. Then we should return this, else we should return the empty string. So in this case we will have control if we have the image in the system. If not, we will pass to the data source that we don't have it. So in this and we can later on do some conditional formatting. Okay, the second thing I will do, I will bind the item image as a container for the electronic reporting and business documents Excel format template. So here we will again paste the expression, and what we are doing here, so we're basically here fetching from the event table the original document that we uploaded as a product image from documents table, and by fetching it with the method get file content as a container, and this will give me the original image. And the next thing I still have to do is, because in Excel you don't have the possibility to do some kind of conditional formatting, that's why I need to pass some additional information in the data model so that I will be able to do that. So I need to select is item image present node in the data model, and again I need to add an expression to it. So what are we doing here? We're basically asking ourselves, so the product image is not present, we will just return false. If it is, we will return true, and we can then later on use this result in our format mapping. So again we save it, Okay, and now we're done for the product images. Now let's do the same stuff also for the product specifications. So basically we need to check a few things. We need also the event table. Why the event table? So we already have it because we have on this event table the released products. And then we need the table records for docuref table. Why the docuref? Because docuref table contains all the attachments on the related entities. So this our related entity is event table. Because we have all of this, we don't need to add anything. And now we just need to go back to the sales invoice lines. So here, and again add a new calculated field. So this will be the product specification calculated field, and we will again add a formula to it. So we will paste the already prepared expression. So what are we doing here? First of all, we will do the filtering in the docuref table, and we will be looking for all the documents that are present on the invent product item, which is already present on the invoice lines. And we will also filter it via the category. So we want just fetch, we would just like to fetch the product specification documents. So as we stored only one, I will get only one result. And this filtering is done in the database. So basically filter function converts this expression to the SQL statement, which will be passed to the in the background to the database. And if we have more of them, we would just like to fetch the first one. For example, if somebody would make some kind of mistake, we just want to fetch the first document in the database. So this is basically it, and we just need to save this expression and go back. And now the next thing we need to do, as we have now all the data sources that we need just to bind the product specifications to our data model. So again, we need to find the item specification node, and we need to bind first the product specification calculated field to the model, and then we need to bind all the other fields. So let us first fetch the file content as a container and bind it to the content container. And for the rest of the fields, we will just I will just copy already prepared expressions. So we will also add the file name, and we will call here the product specification calculate field method file name. And the next thing, we will also pass the document ID, save it, and again we will do the same for the MIME code, and we will pass in the MIME code the file extension, for example. Okay, and now we're basically set up in the electronic reporting framework. So the next thing I want to do is to show you, let us just do a double check that we didn't lose any of the configuration. Okay, and let's see if everything is hooked up. So yeah, we seem to have every data source binded to the model. So the next thing we will do, we will extend the already imported sales invoice format configuration. And how to do this? I won't do this via electronic reporting framework workspace, but I will now use the business document management framework. So as I mentioned, this is an additional tooling added to the electronic reporting framework, which allows you to design the template you want to use for your business documents. And now we will add a new document. And I will be using this because I want to show you how to, firstly, how to add product images to the business documents template and show you the result. And then I will show you again how to do this in the Docentric Designer so that you will see what's the difference. And we will be, again, as I mentioned, I will be using the sales invoice. So I will create a new template from the existing sales invoice. I will say that this is sales invoice Excel with product images. Okay. And as you will see, I'm using this on my virtual machine, which is, let's say, like the on-premise installation. And if you're using on-premise installation, in some cases you will also have problems like I'm having, because you cannot create OAuth trusted tokens with on-premise installation of D365FO, which is not visible from the internet. And okay, so it doesn't matter. We can use, in this case, our local Excel to create the format template. So I will open my Excel in my local Excel, this template, and I will start modifying it. So now we see here we have this Excel template, and first thing we need to do is to find where we already have invoice lines. Okay, and we here see a range. So basically this is a range which is used in the electronic configuration to fill the data. And we also here have an item number. Okay, I will enlarge this so that we can easily use this. But one thing I want to do now is to enable headings, grid lines, and also the ruler, because it's easier to change the template, and then we will hide it again because this will be used on the printed document. And what can I do now? I can extend this row and add the product image, but if I do this, then I won't be able to hide and shrink the row to the preferred size. So because of that, I will just insert a new line. I need to merge these two cells together. I need to extend a little bit this row, and again I want to select this newly created row because I need to create a range that I can use later on in the electronic reporting framework workspace. So I will define a new name for this range, and the second thing I want to do is to add into this cell I just selected a new picture. And I will show you first if I add a new picture for my local machine. And I have already a sample thumbnails. So first thing I will do, I will use the Surface Pro sample image. Here is a nice trick. If you click on the image and press the Alt key on the keyboard, then the Excel will automatically position the image in the left upper corner. And because we want to align this image in the middle, we will add a little bit of spacing to it and we will move it. And now we will shrink the cell to have the same spacing on each side. The next thing we need to do, we need to name this picture so that we can use it again in the electronic reporting framework, and we will give it a name of invoice lines item image. The second thing we need to check is to click on the size and properties of the picture, and we need to check if in the properties we have selected move the image but don't size it with cell. Why is this really important? Because when electronic reporting will multiply the image for each item number, the image will be positioned in the correct cell. Okay, now we're done. We just save the template, we close it. Now we need to sync the stored copy. with the electronic reporting framework in order to get the newly added range and newly added cell. We need to wait a little bit while D365 is fetching the newly created information. Okay, and now we're done. And we're going back again to the electronic reporting framework. And if everything is correct, we should now have the sales invoice with product images. And if we go into the designer, we should now have those additional fields. So we should now, in the invoice line range, in the invoice line values, we should now have product images range. Yes, we do. And inside we should have the invoice lines image, item image. Okay, but before we start binding this format model in the designer, we need to change the mapping on the format model. And how do we do this? The first thing is to change these enums containers, and let's change the type of the Jira type to our model. So we say edit. And as we can see, we here are using still the Microsoft invoice model, and we need to use payment attachment model enumeration. Okay, and the second thing we need to do, now we got some errors because we're changing the model. And the second thing we need to do the same is for the list code, and again we need to use the list code 1. Okay, and again we do the same for the data model. So for the data model invoice, we need to change again the mapping to the invoice model Docentric and to the sales invoice. Sales invoice. Okay. Okay. And now if we save this and validate again, we will see that all the errors are, all the validation errors are gone. Okay, and we validate again, we will see that the validation errors are gone. Yes, great. So now the next thing we need to do is to bind the newly created ranges and cells in the format model mapping. And how to do this? So basically we need to go again inside our tree and find the product image range. And the first thing we will do here is to make conditional to bind the range to a formula. And what we are going to do here, we want to check if the item image is present. And if it's present, then we want to show this range, else we will hide it. So this is basically the trick here. And the second thing we want to do is to bind the invoice item image. So this is pretty much simple. We want to go to the invoice lines and bind the item image as a container to the cell, which is basically our image, our product image. And we did this, and now we're getting some kind of error that we have no binding in the model. So this is really strange, but we will go back and check again. And now we're done. We just need to save. Okay, what warnings are there? Okay, we seem to have some kind of problems with the mapping, and we'll go back again and check what's wrong with the model. And let's go back to the invoice model mapping and check what we have missed here. Let's go and back again to the designer, and let's take a look. So we're looking at invoice lines, and we need to have item image as a container binded, and we need to have item image binded, and we also need to have is item image present. So we basically have everything in order. Okay, I don't know why this is now causing me problems. But it doesn't matter, everything is okay. So don't mind the errors. So now let us check if our model mapping is working. But before we do this, to add a product image and also product specifications to our release document. So how do we do this? We go to our release products view, where we add to each product item a new image. So this is pretty much simple and straightforward. We select the correct product image and we will use this one. And if I may just stop a little bit here, you can see I have some images that are really big. So basically this one is over 1 megabyte. Why I did this? Because I want to show you the difference, and also one thing you have to be careful when you're bringing subdocuments and images to the report. And why is that? Because if you will use big files at the beginning, then you will also have a big file as a result of the report. And you have to keep in mind that you will be distributing your documents over different channels. And some channels have limitations. And let's say most of email, for example, emails won't be sent to the recipients if they are over 15 megabytes. Let's say this is some kind of practice that a lot of companies don't allow emails that are bigger than 50 megabytes. Okay, and the second thing that also D365 does, when you store a file, it stores the original file, as you can see here, and when we click OK, it also creates a small thumbnail, which is, by the way, of size 300 by 120 pixels, and this image is big enough to put it on the sales invoice. The second thing we want to do is to add to this product image an attachment, and this attachment will be of type file, and this attachment would be the product specification for this item. So we will select the Surface Pro 128 gigabytes, and the next thing that we want to do is to activate this attachment. We want to say that this attachment is in English US language, especially if you would upgrade my example also with different languages. And the second thing we need to do is to add a category to the document so that we know that this is a product specification. So we just save, okay, and go back. And now we're set up. So this is how we set up our product images and product specifications. And now we're ready to generate a document. So let's go to the Docentric workspace, and we need to find the sales invoice, and we would like to use the print management. And on the print management, I would like to use the newly created sales invoice with product images. So I will be using the electronic reporting and business documents framework template and pipeline. So I just change this, and now we're set up. So let's go now to the sales order, and let's see, on this sales order I have a sample already created invoice, and let's see what is the end result. So now we should get an Excel from the electronic reporting, and we can see that it's working. So basically we have the first item without an image, the second with an image, and we also have these headers, grid lines, and so on. So basically this is what we forgot on our business document to remove. And now we will also repair this, and we will go back to the business document management. We will now edit the template, and never mind the errors, and we will open this template in our Excel. Okay, and what we will change now? First we will change the picture to use our blank picture, Why did we do this? Because if I wouldn't be hiding this row, if the image would be empty, then the electronic reporting won't change this image, and you will get this default image. And it's better to use a blank image in this case and not some other product image. So for example, we will use our blank thumbnail like this. And the second thing we want to fix is to remove the grid lines, the formula, formula bar, and the grid lines and the headings. Okay. So now we have the template that we want to receive back, and we will also make it a little bit smaller because Excel always remembers where you left off. And now we're saving, and we're closing it, closing the template. And again, we need to sync the stored copy, and we have to wait a little bit, and we're almost done. Okay. Okay, and now let's try again what we will get now. So now it seems everything is working. Okay, yeah. But why are we not getting here an image? So let's fix also this. Let's go back to the related product, and as we saw, we had a mid-range speaker, and yes, it has no product image. So if it has no product image, we have to add this product image. And sorry, I selected the Word document. This is not what I wanted. We need to select the product image for the one, okay, mid-range speaker, and save it. And we will also add the product specification to it. So we'll go back again in my sample folder for the product specifications. We will add mid-range speaker. We will say that this is English US language with the category product specification, and we're set up. Okay, and now let's try again in the invoice journal, and let's print again the format. Okay, great. It seems that we have our product images and everything is working nicely. Okay. So we have seen how to do this in the electronic framework, how to prepare the template in electronic framework and in business documents management tooling. And now let us see how to create the same story with Docentric. But we will also add product specifications because we cannot merge documents in Excel. And now how to do this? So I will go back to my sample folder. I already have template from the previous session. I will just make a copy of it. I will give it a different name. Okay. Let's say this is the CBD sales invoice with terms and conditions and product images and product specifications report. And now we will open it. And the next thing we need to do is to generate a data source package file. So this is a file that we can use for testing. And we just need to go back to the print management and change the report format to the Docentric pipeline. And in the Docentric pipeline, we will be using the generate the data source print destination, which will generate the DDSP package file, which is basically an XML. And I want to have the sample data and labels generated in English format and also some other languages like German, Spanish, and French. And I will just say OK and save this. And now I will again use print management to generate the document. But in this case now I will be getting back my data source package files. And we need to wait a little bit, and now we see we have them. And let's start modifying our template. So the first thing we need to do is to go to the Docentric tab and load the new data source. So we have it in the download, and we will select this one, the sales invoice report CBD. So this is the configurable business document data source. And I have added it. I will also enable the paragraph marks so that I can easily design the document. And now we are going at the end of the document. So this is where we finished on the last webinar. First thing we need to do is to add product images. So how to do this? It's really simple. We need to find in the document where our invoice line is located. So this is this line. And we need to position to this cell. So we won't be adding a new row. We could also do this, but I will just add a new line to my document, and I will add unconditional if tagging element. So if this if will be true, and in my case I will be checking if I have item image in my data source, then I want the report to show me my product image, and I just need to bind it to the item image node from the data source. Okay, and I need to save, and this is it what I need to do for the product images. So let us check if we have done it correctly, and yes, now we have product images. So this was really quick. Okay, and now let's add product specifications to the document. So we need to go to the end of the document. So yes, we are at the end. And the first thing we will add is again an if tagging element. So we will be conditionally showing product specifications only if we have them in the data source. So I will use already prepared an expression, and I will be checking if we have any of the item specifications in our data source, and if we have them, we want to show the next part that is contained in the if tagging element. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to create a new section break, because we want to add here a table of contents that contains only the data that is contained in this section. And then following the table of contents, we want to have a nicely styled terms and conditions. And we could also remove in this section this header, but I won't be doing this in my demo. So I will now leave here the space for the product specification table of contents, and I will create the header. Okay, and I will say that this will be 18 in size and will be bolder, and I would like to use some nice colors for the heading. And then I will insert here my table of contents. So I will go to the reference. I will say I want to insert a table of contents for the custom table of the contents, because I need only items. Before that, I have already created a style that is also can be used as a table of contents. So this is the product specification style, and I want that this style should be shown on the first level of table of contents. Okay, and we will add, and okay, we have no entries, no table entries, no problem. So now we'll again add a new page break, because we want to start on the next page with our product specifications. So the next thing we want to add is to create the table of contents. And how to do this? First, we need to create a group, and we will go back to the Docentric tab, and we will select a group tagging element, and we will say that our group of item specifications, but only those who are not empty, and we want to group the items by the item ID field. Okay, and now we have our nicely created group. Okay, and in the group we will now create a few new lines, and we will add two fields. First field would be the item ID, and then we want to style it a little bit, and we add another field, and the second field will be the name. Okay, and then we want to add to the new line a subdocument which will show us our product specification, and we will bind it to the content of the grouped item. Okay, and we know that we are expecting Word documents, but we could also use the HTML in this case. and we just save it. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is to not show these two fields on the end document, as we are only using them for the table of contents. So we need to select the whole line, and we want to use the product specification style. So now these two fields are in really small font, and they are using white color so that we cannot see them. And now we just need to go back to the product specification table of contents, and we need just to say update field, and we can see that we have already now created the table of contents. Okay, let's see what we have done. Let's try now this. We will execute the preview function, and now we seem to have the product images, and we have nicely designed terms and conditions. And if we go down in the document, yeah, we got also the product specifications, we got the terms, the table of contents, and it's also clickable. When we click on the table of contents, we now can go in the PDF to the correct page where all the product specifications are located. And now we see that all product specifications are on the same page. But what if we want each product specification to start on a new page? It's really a simple task to do, and we just go to the end of the document. We select the last tagging element in the document. We go to the group, and we again just insert page break. Okay. So this is it, and again, now I'm saving. Now I will use the live preview, so I won't be using the preview in the PDF document, but I will be using the live preview function. So this live preview enables me to see all the changes that I'm making on the fly in the document. So now let's check what happened with the product specification. Yeah, we got all the product specifications on a separate starting page. Okay, I think we're done. And now let us try to generate this document in D365. So the next thing we will do, we will upload this template, but because I want to make it as optimized as possible. So as we can see now that this template is pretty much big, so it's more than 5 megabytes. Why is that? Because we also added the original image in the data source that we were using in the Excel format. So we need to go back to the electronic reporting framework. We need to go back to the invoice model mapping, and we need to go to the designer. And in the designer, we want to remove the binding for the item image as a container, because we won't be using it anymore. And I will just remove this binding. And as soon as I'm doing this, you will see that now if I generate again my DDSP file, I will get a lot smaller DDSP file, and I want to use this optimized DDSP file in my, so as now you can see the previous was 7.5 megabytes, and the new one is only is less than a megabyte size. So I will select this one, and now I will be playing a little bit around with the sample data. So we now have this new DDSP file, which is a lot smaller. And one thing I want to do is to check how my document will be showing if I multiply, let's say, invoice lines. So I just go to the XML editor. I need to find the invoice lines. So this is the first invoice line. I will just simply select it and duplicate it. And the nice thing here is that I'm doing all this in offline. So I click OK. And if we go in the live preview, yes, we now see that we have two mid-range speakers. Okay, let's see what will happen if I remove the image information from the data source. And this can simply be done like this. We just need to modify let's say we will remove the item image from the data source, empty the information out, Okay, so, and click OK. And yes, the image is not filling up the unnecessary space, and we got the information, only the text information about the line. So this is the result I wanted to show you about the conditional formatting. And now we just need to check, because we have multiple same lines in the data source. That means that we also have multiple product specifications, and we want to check that if the product specification is only once present on the document. And yes, we can see that only once we have it in the table of contents. And also, next up, it's also no duplicate product specifications. So now we're set up. We have the document generated as we wanted. The template is done. And now we just need to go back to the Docentric setup and go to the sales invoice report. And we need to upload our new configurable business document template, which is, by the way, this one, to the system. So I just select the template file, attach, upload a new file. I will browse for a file, and I need to go to my webinar folder, and here I need to select my new template, save it, and go back. And the next thing we need to do is to change also the destination. So first thing we will do is to change the print management setup, and now we will not be using the data source print destination, but we will be using the file print destination. The second thing we will need to check is that we are using the correct template. Yes, we are. And we want to generate a PDF. We want to download it, and we also want to store it to the SharePoint to the desired folder location. And we're here also using placeholders, as you can see, and these placeholders will help me create the necessary folder structure in the SharePoint. And if structure does not exist, Docentric will create it for me. So I will say OK, I will save, and again I will try to generate a document and use print management. And now, if we have any luck, we will be getting a PDF for download. Yes, and let us try to open it. And yes, we can see we have product images, we have general terms and conditions, and also product specifications. And let us check now in our SharePoint if we also have a document here. I already have prepared, and yes, a few seconds ago we have created a current year in the folder, and we have created the folder of customer, and in the folder of the customer we have the invoice that we just generated. And the nice thing here is, because we can unleash the power of workflows, or if you would use the Azure Blob Storage, you can use also the Azure events. In this case, you have the possibility to build reactive event-driven apps with a fully managed event routing service that is built into Azure. So yeah, it's pretty cool, right? You can distribute it anywhere. So for the test, let's do this again, but I would like just to show you email print destination. Okay, now we selected the email print destination. I will be sending this document to myself, and you can again use our placeholders, which will be replaced in the runtime. The same is for the body of the email, which is, by the way, not possible in the standard SSRS print destination. And I intentionally bolded out the placeholders so that we can later on see how they are replaced when I receive the email. I have also added the current workers image, and also a logo of the company. So I'll be saving this. I will now generate again the invoice. And now let us check my mailbox. And yes, I already got an email. Let me show you how it looks like. So yeah, we got nicely crafted email body with the dynamic information in it. So we have the invoice number, we have the payment conditions. We have also attached the invoice. Is this the invoice we just created? Yes, it has product images. We have general terms and conditions, and we also have product specifications in the document. So great. our demo worked. And now let me switch back to my presentation. So, as the time is running out, let's do the wrap-up of today's webinar. First, I set the baseline by showing you how the result from the previous webinar looks like. And then we moved on and added product images to the D365FO. I showed you also how to add them to the data source of our sales invoice data model. I'm not a designer, but I think I managed to create an eye candy product specifications in Microsoft Word. Next up, we added product specification Microsoft Word documents to each of the used released products on the sales invoice. And we applied the same magic to bring them to the data source of our model. All the time we were using the electronic reporting framework configuration instead of writing code and deploying it to D365FO. We have then updated the sales invoice design by using Docentric Microsoft Word Designer. And finally, we generated and distributed the sales invoice to the end customer by using Docentric Improved Report Distribution and Archiving. I have showed you only a fraction of this functionality, and if you are using both worlds, electronic reporting and SSRS, we've got you covered. By the way, as most of you probably spend a lot of time testing how the end result looks like, I have showed you how easy this can be achieved by only changing the sample data offline. You do not need to waste precious time preparing the sample data in Dynamics 365FO. I think you would all agree with me that this is definitely a time and money savior. And if you have ever run into similar or any kind of other reporting related problems, maybe we can help you solve them, so get in touch with us. And now let's see if we got any of your questions. So let me just go to the Q&A panel. And yes, we got a few of them. So let me start with the first one. Do you have to verify the sizes of the attached files and images? Are there any size limitations? It depends where you will be storing your documents. The file size limit by default is set to 50 megabytes. You can change this setting in the document management parameters. But you definitely should not store big images and product specification files. They should be optimized as much as possible, as you will most probably distribute documents over many different channels, and most of them have size limitations, especially if you're sending an email. And if you saw through the demo, I used only thumbnail-sized product images and also handmade optimized product specifications. Okay, so let us go to the next question. How do you improve the report design testing process? We are spending most of our time testing the layout of our reports and preparing the correct sample data in D365. As you saw in the demo, I have showed you how to use the Docentric Designer Sample Data Editor. You can modify any data you want and check on the fly the result. Everything is done offline and without access to D365FO, so you can really play and share the document around until all parties involved are satisfied. Let me just quickly now show you how this is done. I will switch to my virtual machine and I will go to our Word template, and we need to switch to the Docentric tab in Word and enable the data source panel. So we will resize it a little bit and we will select the report data and click on this button, which will show us the XML editor. And if we look for invoice lines, we found the first line, and we will first duplicate this line so that we will get multiple line items. And on the first one, I will set the amount to 1960 and I'll click OK. Then we can quickly look at how the document will look like by clicking on the preview button So this will generate me the document now. And if I go below, I can see that we have two mid-range speakers because we duplicated the line. And the first one has the amount of 1960. So we can pretty much change everything in the sample data. We can create a new data without creating them in the D365 environment. And the next cool feature is also the live preview. I will show you how the live preview looks like. So I will enable the live preview. I will resize the document. And now, if I do any changes in the sample data, for example, we will again change the invoice lines, and we will let's say that we will add a bigger amount number. And as soon as I save, you can see that we have changed the result in our live preview window. So this is really a cool feature, and it really speeds up the design of the document. Okay, so let us go back to the presentation and to our next question. Why did you prepare your own product specifications and did not use the PDF documents of the manufacturer? It is also possible to use them, but not with electronic reporting framework. In Docentric, we have done this in the past, and for those of you who are interested, you can find an article about this on our blog. But I can give you at least 3 reasons why you shouldn't use the manufacturer's PDF documents. The first problem is that those PDF documents are usually big, and if you add a lot of big files into one single document, you will get a huge sales invoice which is hard to distribute around. The second problem is definitely the conversion from PDF to Word. You might not get the expected result you want. And if you want to use our subdocument feature, you need to provide Microsoft Word or HTML document. And the third one is that only by creating your own product specifications, you can achieve your corporate visual identity on all your public-facing documents. Okay, let's go to the next question. Is there any way or a workaround to embed or merge a PDF document? Yes, but not via electronic reporting framework, as I mentioned already. You can do this by using XPath code and extending our Docentric data source provider class and merge PDF files in the Docentric report execution pipeline to the generated document. Okay, and let's go to the next question. You've said that you can't merge product specifications to the sales invoice in the standard D365 business documents. Now you've added it to the electronic reporting data mapping and then use Docentric Designer. One could then also add and bind these added specifications to the format configuration in D365. Then you could theoretically add specifications to the standard design. How would you comment that? So this was a really long question. There is no problem providing the data to the format, but Excel and Word templates in electronic reporting framework do not support embedding subdocuments. This is a unique feature in Docentric. Okay, and the next question is, since we're adding attached files as subdocuments into the Word template, are there any limitations as to what file types can be added? Yes, as I mentioned in the demo, if you want to use subdocument feature, you can use only Microsoft Word or HTML documents. Okay, the next question is it possible to troubleshoot if the data model and data binding setup is correct? Yes, and I think the best way is to generate the DDSP file. So this is the Docentric data source package file, and you just open it and see what's inside. So this is basically an XML file, and I think it's pretty easy to go through it. So the next question is, how do you deploy the template from the development environment to other environments? Let me show you again how easy it is to upload the new design via the Docentric configuration. So I will quickly switch now back to my virtual machine. I will go to my D365 environment, and we need to go to the Docentric workspace to the report setup, and we will look for the sales invoice, and we will select the sales invoice report, and we will go down to the templates. So what do I need to do? From the from the development environment, we need to download this template design. And now we go to, let's say, production environment, and we just click on the template file, attach file, and we upload a new template design. So this is this one which I just downloaded. And now we're done. So this is basically it. Okay, let's go back to our questions. And the last question is, I'm an X++ developer and I have been working with customizations of SSRS reports as well as with customization of Docentric replicas via DSP classes. It seems to me that using electronic reporting to add extra field involves much more work and as adding a new field to the DSP class. What is your comment? I think this depends what you are used to. When you know both worlds, I think you will spend, let's say, the same amount of time preparing the data for an extra field, but the difference is that there is no need for deployment. As in electronic reporting, you just modify the configuration, which is instantly applied. Okay, so now we don't have any new questions. So, thank you for taking the time, and once again, I hope you enjoyed watching our webinar. If you will have any other questions, I welcome you to send them to me or to our support and we will get back to you. Stay tuned and subscribe to our YouTube channel and our blog as we will soon be back.